Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our special open spoiler discussion of Loki Episode 3. Now, in case what I just said or the title of this video did not make that clear enough, this video assumes that you have watched Loki Episode 3. We are going to talk and discuss about Loki Episode 3 in an open spoiler kind of format. Got it? Good. So if you haven't seen Loki Episode 3, just navigate away from this video, add it to your favorites list, come back a little bit later on, and check it out then if you like. But for now, we do have a bunch of things to talk about Loki Episode 3. And man, let me tell you guys something. First of all, good to have all you guys here in this live stream. It's good to see you all in here to talk about Loki. Now, let me just give you my kind of impressions of Loki Episode 3 first, and then we'll spend the rest of our afternoon with us just taking your thoughts, observations, opinions, assessments, everything you thought about Loki Episode 3 as well. But first, let me tell you about my thoughts of Loki Episode 3. So out of what have we had so far? Now 18 episodes of Marvel MCU Disney Plus shows. I think it was 9 for WandaVision. WandaVision had 9, right? And Falcon the Winter Soldier had 6. And now we're 3 into this. So we'll call it 18. We have 18 episodes of MCU TV so far. I gotta say, while I loved episodes 1 and 2, especially episode 2, Episode 3 has been my least favorite of all 18 episodes of MCU shows so far. And I'll go into why here. So there's a couple of big things that stand out to me about it. You know, normally I'll have my one or two of my buddies will come over, me and Ann will sit down, we'll get some food, we'll pop on, whether it's WandaVision or Falcon the Winter Soldier or Loki, and we'll pop it on. And we'll talk through and say, oh my God, you believe that? I realized last night, about halfway through the episode, nobody said a word. None of us said a single word. And then the episode ended, and I was just like, well, that was a waste of time. So here are my thoughts. Here are my thoughts. First of all, nothing really happened. More specifically, nothing of consequence happened to actually further the story along very well at all. Like, we had this big, long, prolonged sequence of, okay, she attacks the TVA, good start. By the way, let me throw this in there too, that the cold opening with her inside that agent's mind, trying to coerce the information out of her over drinks and talking about brain freeze, that was really interesting. I like that. That was cool. Those 2 minutes were very good. I did like that. I like that part very much. So then she does her assault on the TVA, shows up there. For somebody who has studied the TVA as much as she has, she sure did seem surprised that her magic wasn't going to work in the TVA when she tried to enchant the one guy and realized that she couldn't. So whatever. But that was a fine sequence. She attacks her. Loki shows up, they get into it, and then begins this long slog of a series of sequences where they go to that, whatever the name of that alien planet was. And all of a sudden they're chatting and talking and whatever. And listen, I've said before that one of my favorite things about Loki so far has been just the dialogue and the dynamic and the chemistry between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston. I said I could watch an entire series of episodes where it's just the two of them in a cafeteria talking. So I'm all about dialogue. I am all about dialogue. I don't need explosions every 5 minutes. I don't need punchy every 5 minutes. I don't need, filthy, dirty, sexy every 5 minutes. You guys are putting in the name of the place. Lamitus 1. Okay, Lamitus 1. That was the name of the place. Thank you, everybody in the live chat. Appreciate that. I don't need all that stuff. Give me good, solid character dialogue and I'll eat it up. I found there to be zero chemistry. And this is very subjective. This is very, very subjective. But I found there to be zero chemistry between, I'll still just call Sylvie the variant, between the variant and Loki. Zero chemistry whatsoever. I found myself bored to tears listening to the two of them talk. And by the way, like when Loki was talking to Owen Wilson in like, say, episode 1, as he was talking, we were learning things about Loki. As Loki started to identify in himself that, you know, the charade of power and control to instill fear, and he's realizing that's me. That's me doing that. Like, we're getting a deeper look into Loki. What do we get out of these conversations? Nothing. We got Loki talking about some things we already knew. Oh, I get it. Loki loved his mom. Yeah, we knew that. Thank you. That was Thor: The Dark World. We got that 8 years ago. Thor: The Dark World. Thank you. And then, is it just me, or does this variant have zero personality? And by the way, it's almost like this. In this episode, we're watching the variant, and she's talking, and it's like, you know what? She's just a girl trying to right a wrong. Well, hold on a minute. Time out. In the previous couple of episodes, this girl is a cold-blooded murderer. Like, did we all forget the end of, I think it was episode 1, where she lures a bunch of TVA agents into a field covered in oil and does the old Braveheart thing, lights them all on fire as they burn alive, screaming in the night, with the variant sitting there in her dark cloak just watching them die. And she's killed multiple of them. Like, she doesn't capture to take their charges from them for whatever her purpose was. She wants to murder them, and she murders tons of them. Just straight up murders them, kills them. And all of a sudden now we're watching in this episode where she's talking to Loki with zero chemistry and very little personality. And all of a sudden, no, she just misunderstood. She just misunderstood. This is kind of misunderstood. And on top of that, we're now halfway through this series, and we still don't really know anything about her. We still don't even know. Now, you guys remember, if you watch the pregame show, it was my prediction that was so wrong. So wrong. My prediction that was so wrong was that in this episode 3, we're just going to get a lot of information, right? Like, not resolution stuff, but we're going to get information. We're going to find out what is it her goals are. Who is her true identity? And that will set us up for what's coming in the second half of the show, episodes 4, 5, and 6. Dead wrong. Completely wrong. So in case any of you guys thought I've secretly actually already watched the episodes in advance, which I did for episode 1 and 2, obviously, but in case any of you thought I might have been lying to you and that I've already seen like episodes 3, 4, or 5, you clearly know I didn't now. Dead wrong. So we get into this episode knowing that there's this female variant. She's after the TVA for whatever endgame is, we don't know. Loki's caught up with her. They have some exchange. And by the end of episode 3, we're in that exact same place. The one piece of relevant, new, revelatory information that we got out of Loki episode 3, and it was an important one, but it was dropped very casually, like a very casual drop of information, is that the TVA agents are not created by the Timekeepers. They are actually people who are themselves variants and then brought into service in the TVA. That is an important, story direction influencing, revelatory, and relevant piece of information that they gave us here. But that was it. There was nothing else. I could tell somebody literally, you can skip episode 3 and know this, that the TVA agents are not created by the Timekeepers. They're actually variants themselves. If you told somebody that who hadn't seen episode 3 yet, they can completely skip episode 3 and they're not missing anything. Am I right or wrong? You know I'm right. You know I'm right. I could call my mom, who probably hasn't seen Loki episode 3 yet, and I could tell her, Mom, the TVA agents are variants themselves, not created by the Timekeepers. And then she can just skip episode 3 and start watching episode 4, and she hasn't missed a beat. She hasn't missed a beat. When you can sum up the importance and relevance of an entire episode with one sentence, then it becomes kind of a waste. And that's what I felt this episode of Loki was. And you guys, you know I'm no Loki hater. You know I've loved this series so far. I loved episode 1. I loved episode 2 even more. Loki is one of my favorite characters in the MCU. I was totally intrigued by this Enchantress Lady Loki variant, whatever you call her. I was totally invested and interested when, the revelation of her came in episode 2. But then I watched this episode. It's like, you literally did not have to watch this episode. That's it. You didn't have to watch this episode. This was an unnecessary episode to watch. Except for that one piece of information. That the agents are not created by the timekeepers. That's it. Other than that, and when you have an episode of television or a movie, for that sake, in a series, where you can sum up in one sentence everything you need to know about the episode, move on, that means it's not a very good episode. We didn't learn anything new about Loki that we didn't already know. We really didn't learn much about Sylvie at all. I thought the banter between Sylvie and Loki was lame in a show that has had fantastic dialogue and banter so far. Thought it was rather lame and uninteresting. And then somebody explain this to me. Can somebody explain this to me? Is this the same Loki? Is it not? Who fought one-on-one with Captain America and was kind of winning that fight before it got stopped? Is this not the same Loki who went one-on-one, toe-to-toe against his brother Thor? And he lost that fight, but he went toe-to-toe with Thor. Is this not the same Loki in Ragnarok who was taking out all of his sister Hela's minion beasts coming at her and like wiping them out with his blades? And this same Loki is a guy who 2 human guards grabbed him by the arm and threw him out a window. Is this the same Loki? Is this the same Loki? I'm just wondering. Did I miss something? Did I miss something? So, and I will say one other thing that was interesting. One other thing that, and I should say this too. Visually, it was beautiful. The episode was beautiful visually. Like especially once they get into the town and, like the Ark shuttle is getting destroyed and falling pieces visually. I mean, hey, hats off. That looked really good. It really did. At least I thought it did. I thought it looked quite beautiful. The other thing too was, that was interesting was the one structure was falling down. And did Loki stop it? It looked like Loki, is his telekinesis that powerful that he stopped the thing falling down on him? And he was able to hold up that whole building? Or was it something else? Now, I see a bunch of people making excuses in the chat. But Loki was drunk. So what? He was drunk. A guy who can bench press 500 pounds can still bench press 500 pounds when he's drunk. He just hasn't, he's thinking a little bit slower, whatever. This is the same Loki that the Incredible Hulk picked up by both feet and slammed him into concrete floors. And all Loki just did was, whew, whoa, okay. If it's all the same to you, I'll have that drink now. Remember that? The Hulk grabbed him by his legs, smashed him back and forth. The Incredible Hulk smashing him into concrete. Finished with that and, whew, well, if it's all the same to you, I'll have that drink now. All right, this guy, just two human dudes can grab him by the arm and have him free go, no, and they throw him out of a train. Really? Okay. Oh, but he was drunk. Oh, okay. Well, he was drunk. That explains everything then. Anyway, but I will say I am intrigued by the building falling. And because is he that powerful, or did something else go on? Was something else happening there? I hope some of you guys wrote in about that. And it was super short, which was disappointing because, the first 2 episodes were really good lengths. And then we came into this episode and I popped and I was like, oh well. I mean, which is fine. They can, like, a lot of the WandaVision episodes were really short, and I really enjoyed those. So, I mean, that was fine. But still, when you come off the first 2 episodes and they're a certain length and you're all excited about it, you get a little bit disappointed. A little bit of the wind comes out of the old sails when you see it's a little bit shorter. So I think minus the credits, it ended up being about 38 minutes or something like that. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, the building falling, interesting. The TVA's agents' origins, very interesting, fascinating, very, very relevant to the story. Can't think of anything else. Can't think of another single reason why somebody needs to watch this episode. You can tell your buddies, skip this episode, start watching episode 4, and they won't have missed anything. I mean, this, to me, it seems a little bit crazy. Anyway, have I lost all hope in this Loki series? Absolutely not. I am still jazzed and stoked for episode 4. The first 2 episodes were brilliant. I really like Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I loved WandaVision. I have all the faith in the world. All the faith in the world that they're going to get this back on track for episode 4. Completely believe in it. I'm still excited about this show. I'm still love this show. But you know, me, I call it as I see it, and it's all subjective. You may or may not agree with me, but I thought this particular episode was subpar. I thought this episode was subpar. I love the show, but I'm not going to put on rose-colored glasses and pretend it was something I didn't think it was. I thought it was a bad episode, but I have all the faith in the world that they'll get back in the running. This will get back on its feet, start running again. So there we go. With me throwing all that out, with me putting all that out there, I would like to now throw it open to you guys and spend the rest of the time hearing from you about what you thought of Loki episode 3, about the things they revealed, you know, the one thing they revealed, about all the things they didn't reveal. Maybe you want to talk about those beautiful visuals, the good fight choreography that was a part of, like, when she was assaulting the TVA and stuff like that, the good fight choreography. Maybe there's things that were in there that make you have some more speculation for what we're going to see in 4 moving forward. Whatever it is you guys want to talk about, let's do that here. Now, I'm going to remind you guys that for these special videos, you do not use the tip link that's down in the description of the video. That is for the John Campea Show. If you have a thought or something you want to share for this video, just use YouTube's own built-in super chat function and we will get to it. Okay, so with all that down, with all me whining, complaining about the things I didn't like about Loki episode 3, and I'm sure there are many of you who did, and that's great. I'm glad some of you got to enjoy it because I didn't. Let's get to it and start hearing from you guys. Okay. We're going to start things off here. Is it Tony Hurd we're starting with? No, it is... Wait a minute. We've had a huge jump in the thing here. All right, we're starting off with Cam K, who writes, 1 of 2. Loki may have telekinesis, but that building straight reversed in time. The rubble followed the path it fell, but in reverse. I'm not saying he has the time stone, but that certainly was not just regular telekinesis. Interesting. I'll be honest with you, Cam K, I did not notice the rubble or anything like that. Now, look, it is theoretically possible. God, I don't want them to start using Infinity Stones again. I really don't. We've had 13 years of Infinity Stones. Let's move on. But it is theoretically possible that of all the, Infinity Stone paperweights laying around, it is theoretically possible that he grabbed one and brought it out along with him and then kicked it into use. I mean, maybe. Again, all I can say, Cam, is I did not notice the rubble changing direction as if it was time reversing, because certainly nothing else around them had reversed in time, right? Nothing else around them reversed in time. So, but you might be right. I just didn't notice it myself. Okay, next up. Frankie Gouge writes, or Gog. I always forget how to pronounce Frankie's last name. Anyway, although I enjoyed the episode, I think the final rating has to wait. I think that they had a 2-hour second act and no good place to stop the episode. Maybe, but I mean, here's the thing. It's only a 6-episode show. It's only a 6-episode show. I mean, with only 6 episodes, which is short, even by modern day standards, 6 episodes is short. You should be able to structure out your individual episodes better. I mean, I say it like it's easy, like I could do it. No, but I'm not the standard of excellence. But I mean, it is only 6 episodes. They should be able to plan it out better. That's just my thought, Frankie. But maybe you're onto something there. Okay, let's see here. Juan writes, I love the fact that Loki is low-key falling in love with a version of himself. And yes, pun intended. Well, now hold on a second. I'm still not convinced this is actually a Loki variant. I am still not convinced that the variant, Sylvie, whatever, is actually a Loki variant.
But John, in the episode 2, in the dossier of the...
I know, but that may mean nothing whatsoever. That you know,
she's Sylvie Laufey
daughter or whatever, may not mean anything. Might mean something, might not. But I said I thought throughout episode 2 they were dropping hints that may not be. I'm seeing Julian saying, John, this episode was character development for Sylvie. There was 0 character development with Sylvie in this episode. Nothing. There was not, I don't know a single new thing about, you can't have character development when you don't know a single new thing about the character. And so I disagree with that. But that being said, I am still dubious, not 100%, definitely not 100%, but I'm still dubious that this might actually not be a Loki variant. I might be right about that. I might be wrong about that. I was really hoping by the end of episode 3 that we would know, but we don't yet. So we'll find out as we go. All right. Let's see. Next up, Ismail Montoya writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, Sylvie revealed it. They're all variants. With this information, do you think the spell on the TVA is similar to what Wanda did in WandaVision? I enjoyed the episode, and I liked the train conversation between Sylvie and Loki. I'm glad one of us did. Between Sylvie and Loki and their mother singing Asgardian and Love is a Dagger. Now, as far as the whole thing about them all being variants, what has them under that? I didn't even think about that, Ismail. Is it a kind of, Scarlet Witch-like enchantment that is put over the TVA, or are they just programmed? I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting thing because that was the big gem of the episode, the revelation that these agents are actually variants themselves. At least that's what she believes. That's what she believes. Maybe she's right, maybe she's wrong. I have a feeling she's probably right. So how then does the TVA control them, and who's controlling them? Is Ravonna the one actually behind everything? Is there anybody up those golden elevators? These are the questions that we have to find out. Maybe it's Kang. All right, Frankie also writes, predicting Loki picked up more than his daggers from the TVA. Again, it's actually, I don't know why this thing is jumping all over the place. It's driving me absolutely insane that it's doing that. I mean, hey, listen, they had these Infinity Stone paperweights laying all over the place. Maybe. Next up, Tony Hurd writes, I find it funny that the most interesting scenes in these MCU Disney Plus shows are scenes with 2 people talking. Listen, that's good writing. That's good writing. Like I've talked before about how one of my favorite films of the past 20 years is The King's Speech with Colin Firth and Jeffrey Rush. And the best scenes in that movie are when it's just the 2 of those men sitting in a room talking. Dialogue is everything. Unfortunately, I thought the dialogue in this one was lame. The dialogue between Sylvie and Loki felt like bad 1980s ABC sitcom that only lasted 1 season kind of dialogue. It just felt horribly out of place and forced, and I felt no chemistry there whatsoever. But other than that, yes, the best scenes in this show so far have been the dialogue scenes, and I think that's the sign of good writing. All right, Cam K writes, I appreciate the episode for what it was. Good character development. I saw 0 character development. Great visuals. Interesting reveals. 1 interesting reveal. And left me with questions and anticipation. Problem is, it left me with... I still had the same questions coming in from episode 2. And yeah, I'm anticipating episode 4, but it's my residual excitement from episode 2. Anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Cam, because some of us had to, because I didn't get any of that. They came along with the enjoyment soup and they passed me by. They didn't give me any of that enjoyment soup. So have the extra dose of enjoyment soup. I'm glad you like, and I'm not being facetious. I am glad you liked it, man. I am. That makes me happy. All right, next up, Tony Hurd writes, The last shot of this episode was beautiful and haunting. It was, with Loki and Sylvie looking defeated. Even the soldiers who were chasing them lost hope. Yeah, no, listen, that was a good moment. And visually, it was stunning. It was visually it was stunning. And then you see people in a doomed world. These people are doomed now. And they know they're doomed. And you know, it's a little bit reminiscent of a couple of scenes in Titanic when, like, it's now everybody on the boat knows they're doomed. That's a lot of people undersell how great of a movie Titanic is today. It's the cool thing to shade on Titanic. It's a great movie. And those moments in the movie when the people all realized, oh yeah, the boat's going down, we're not getting off of it, we're doomed. Those were powerful, beautiful moments. And you just got little glimpses of that. You got little glimpses of that in that scene. And I thought that was nice. I thought that was nice as well. All right, next up. Ismail Montoya. We already had Ismail's. All right. Tim Platt writes, one of the things I liked about these MCU shows is the balance they have between character development and progressing the story. Outside of 2 or 3 sentences, this episode felt like a waste of time. I completely agree. There was no character development and there was no story progression. Except for the TV agents were not created by the timekeepers, which is a vital, important piece of information, but it wasn't even revealed within the natural flow of the story of the episode. It's just, whatever. And then Sylvie all of a sudden, oh yeah, she really wants to go home back to Earth because she's from Earth. She's not from the TVA. She's a variant. So even that important piece of information wasn't actually revealed as a part of the narrative flow. It was just kind of dropped in there. But I agree with you, man. There was no character development because I don't know anything about Loki that I didn't already know. And I don't know anything about Sylvie that I didn't really already know. It's still just questions. And anyway, so I agree with you, dude. I agree with you. All right, so this thing continues to jump all over the place. All right, thanks a lot for that, Tim. Next up, Freddie Lorenzo writes, 1 of 3. I don't feel Loki and Sylvie had a sexual tension between them. Yeah, neither did I. I mean, I've seen some people talking about that. I didn't sense that either myself, but whatever. I don't feel Loki and Sylvie had a sexual tension between them as many say. It had more of a brother-sister vibe to me. Although, if someone is going to fall in love with himself, that's Loki. That's true. And by the way, again, I don't know for 100% that she's actually a Loki variant. I still have my suspicions. I still have my suspicions that she's not, but we'll find out as we go. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, part 2 of Freddy. Where'd Freddy part 2 go? If it turns out they have something sexual between them, that would be Loki taking touching yourself game to another level. We were just joking about that the other day. And finally, by the way, guys, if you're gonna write in a multi-part thing, write it all out first in like notepads so you can just copy and paste pieces in really quick so I don't have to search for your second part. Anyway, finally, when you were doing the WandaVision spoiler show, I told you about my battle with cancer and how your show really lifted me up during it. Glad to say I'm currently cancer-free. That is awesome, man. And hoping to outlive the whole MCU. My friend Fred, I raise a glass to that, my friend. May you outlive the MCU, buddy. And thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, dude. Well said. All right, let's get back here and try to find where we were. And we were here. All right, Cam K writes, I do think we may have fell into the trap of our own expectations. We expected something else, and that maybe skewed our perspective on this episode. No, I mean, yeah, I had expectations. I absolutely did. But you know me, I take my expectations and then I leave them at the door when the show starts. They didn't give me anything in this episode. Again, I know nothing more about Loki. I know nothing more about Sylvie. The story didn't progress a single inch. And there was no character development and there was no story progression. Except for that one important big piece of information that they did give us. But so I don't think that's the fault of the show. That's not the fault of us as the audience having expectations. That's the fault of the show. So I'm going to give it that. But listen. It's one episode. And it's by my count, they're 2-1. Because I thought the first 2 episodes were fantastic. So I believe they're going to recover from this bad episode. And we will get back on track here soon. All right, Evelyn writes, It was a meh episode. I love Tom. He seems to be having fun, but I'm still cold towards DiMartino. Something seems missing. Maybe the charm Hiddleston has. I don't blame her. I blame the writing. And again, it's confusing to me because the writing in the show has been so strong. The writing has been so strong. I don't get why they are struggling with the writing here, but I don't blame the actress. I personally don't blame the actress. I mean, maybe if we see more episodes, I'll also start to think it's the actress's problem. But right now, I don't think it's the actress's problem. I just thought it was a poorly written episode. But that's just me. All right, next up, Cam K writes, I will say I did miss Mobius this episode like others. So did I. I wonder if it will get revealed to them that they are all variants, then boom, revolution. Oh, probably. Yeah. And listen, that one piece of information that they did give us this episode about the TVA agents being variants, that explains some things about Mobius, some of the mystery stuff surrounding Mobius. What's with his obsession with jet skis? Well, clearly he was a jet ski owner in his real life, so there's some stuff there. But yeah, I admit that too. But listen, even though I love the Mobius character, he doesn't have to be in every episode. Unless you're not going to do anything else interesting, like they didn't do anything interesting in this episode by my personal estimation. But it was okay that he's not in every single episode. But I agree, I missed him in there too. All right, Charlton Hovis writes, 1 of 2. Loki has been stalling for time in episode 3, like he and Sylvie have done in the prior 2 episodes. He needs to get Sylvie to open up to him, so he waits until she thinks she will die. And she tells him everything. Then Loki reveals he has the time stone or the real transporter. Also, this would be a good way for Doctor Strange to get the time stone back. Maybe. The Eye of Agamotto, as they call it. Again, I kind of hope not. Because again, 13 years of Infinity Stones. The MCU has been all about the Infinity Stones for 13 years. And we please move on from them. I tend to agree with you that the transporter device, he didn't show her the real transporter device. I think that was a fake. The busted one was fake, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think at some point he's actually still has the real thing. So I agree with you on that. We'll find out. Or maybe they have to find some other way off this world. All right, next up. Evelyn writes, I did find it funny, the callback to Thor's another. Yeah, it must be a very Asgardian thing when you enjoy a drink. Another! Psh, throw it down on the ground. I did catch that reference as well. Well said, Evelyn. All right. K Major writes, did they really try to go to the romantic interest route with Loki? Again, I didn't sense that myself personally. You might be right, but I didn't sense that myself. That was weird. It felt forced, like they weren't trying to stab each other. Weren't they trying to stab each other a minute ago? Dude, everything about that dynamic was weird and forced and no chemistry. No chemistry. The whole conversation felt awkward and forced and constructed. Whereas, like, the dialogue between Loki and Mobius felt natural and quick-witted, and it just flowed. These conversations, again, like I said, it reminded me of dialogue from a 1980s one-season-only ABC sitcom that got canceled because nobody bought it. And that's kind of what I felt about their dynamic, or lack of dynamic, but that's just me. All right, let's see. Where are we at? That was K Major there. Charlton, we already covered. K Major also writes, also, overall, I still did like the episode. When they got blasted by the old woman was pretty funny. It was pretty funny, but it was pointless. That entire scene was pointless. Unless they come back to that old woman again. If the story brings us back around to that old woman again, that would give some meaning and purpose for that entire sequence with the old woman in her, trailer park thing. It was a completely utter waste of time scene. It didn't even need to be there. Except for, a little visual gag. Look, he got shot by a concussion gun. Well. Anyway, that was just my take on that. Let's see. Who was that? That was K Major. Next up, the CTB channel writes, The TVA being run by variants makes total sense. Where else would they go if they aren't pruned? Reset means indoctrinated, I guess. Maybe. But don't forget, we also watched them completely incinerate the trust fund kid in episode 1 who didn't have his ticket. I tried to get that guy to give me a ticket. So they did, vaporize that guy. But I think you're right. Probably you get sentenced and you're reset. And we all just kind of assumed reset meant you're wiped out of existence. But reset probably literally means they reset your brain and now you're a totally new person. And you are a member of the TVA. I mean, so I think you're right. And so you're right, CTB. I think that does make perfectly good sense. All right. Next up, Cam K writes, over under 50%, Loki has a time stone. I'm going to go under, but not a lot under. Over under 50%, the temp pad is not broken. Over 50% that the temp pad is not broken. These two scenarios are the only way out of this predicament, it seems. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because somewhere out there, right now, guess who's still alive? I mean, depending on how time is working, depending on where in time Loki and the variant are when they're, what's the name of the place again, everybody? Something One. I keep forgetting the name of the place. Something One. So depending on what the year is, did they say what year it was at? Did they say when they went to that planet, did they say what year it was? I don't think they showed a year. So depending on the year, Lamitus 1. I don't think they showed a year. Oh, it did say, you're right. Max Cohen said it first, and then John Simon, they did say it was 2077. Okay, so what I was going to say was that depending on the year, Heimdall might still be out there. And if Heimdall's out there and he sees all and he sees Loki there, he might shoot down a Bifrost. Right? He might shoot down a Bifrost. But, yeah. As if it was 2077, then that means Heimdall at this point is already dead. So it can't be, I mean, it could still theoretically be a Bifrost. We could get to episode 4 and the world's about to be destroyed and then a Bifrost shows up from somebody or something else, possibly. But I think it's the pad. I think it's the data pad I think Loki has the real one still. Could be wrong about that, but I think that's what's happening here. We will find out. Okay. There we go. That was Cam K with the time pad thing. Temp pad. Okay. Next up, Elif writes, oh my God, how do they escaped? Lemitus, I love this episode. Yeah, I hated the episode, but how do they escape? That's the big thing. Bifrost appears out of nowhere. The pad, the temporal pad shows up. I think it's the temporal pad. Let me ask you guys in the live chat. Let's put in the number 1 if you think next episode will start and it turns out Loki has the actual real functioning temporal pad and he has that still. Or put number 2 if you think anything else will be the reason and the way they get off this planet. Because obviously they're going to escape. So put number 1 that you think that he actually has the real pad. Put number 2 if you think it's anything else. Absolutely anything else. So I'm seeing all ones. No, there's 1, 2. I just saw a single 2 in there. There's another one. Oh, now we're getting a few more. AJ, Quiet Rob, Aaron, Juno are all saying 2. 1s, 2s, 1s, 2s, 1s, 2s is a lot. Oh, there's more 2s popping up now. More 2s showing up in there. I personally am going to lean towards the temp pad. I think that's what it's going to be. But again, it could be a lot of other things. A Bifrost shows up. A ship shows up. Ravonna shows up. Mobius shows up. Maybe Mobius was able to, although how Mobius could track them since they wouldn't be any detection of a variance there since it's an Armageddon situation. But I don't know. Maybe Mobius finds out a way. Maybe Mobius discovers a way to find them. That could be. And he tracks them down and saves them. Maybe. That's possible. But I still think it's number 1. I still think it's number 1. Okay, next up. Sorry, this thing keeps jumping around, guys. I have no control over it. I don't know what is. This is frustrating. This is really frustrating. Sorry, guys. Technology at its best. Okay, so the Ismail, Frankie, Cam, Tony, Ismail. I think we left off at Elif. Let me see if we can get back up to Elif here. K Major, Cam K, Fred. There we go, Elif. Love this episode. Okay, K Major writes, one of two. I'm not one for theories and speculations. I'm a patient man. I like waiting for the story to be told to me, but for the first time since WandaVision, I have two theories for how they get out of their current predicament. Number one, Loki is playing Sylvie and there is another way off the planet. Number two, damn it. Okay, let's try this again, shall we? Number two, that the timeline's Thor makes an appearance and saves them. Thor is a stretch, I know. Yeah, Thor is a stretch. I'm not expecting Thor to go up in there. I mean, the first theory that he's playing Sylvie a bit, he still has the temporal pad. I think that's what's going to come into play here and do it. Like, I mean, we could be wrong. It could be something else completely. Could be something else completely. But I do kind of think that's the one they're going to go with there. I think that's the one they're going to go with. Okay, let's see. Ismail Montoya writes, well, John, gold elevators take you down to Mephisto. Anyway, I find it boring that the next villain of the MCU is just an elevator ride away. Well, I mean, we don't know that. Like, right now, we have absolutely no idea what is behind the curtain of the gold elevators. We have no idea that there's nobody down there, that the timekeepers are actually there, that Kang the Conqueror is there. Maybe another Loki is already there. Maybe they go through those elevators at some point and there's already another Loki there. I mean, right now we really don't know. So we're just kind of assuming. We're just assuming right now. I think they've got something interesting planned. I do think we will see at some point in this series what is behind the gold elevator doors. And when it does, I think we're going to be surprised. I mean, I don't know. That's just random speculation on my part, but I think we're going to be surprised. Let's see how it turns out, Ismail. All right, next up, Cam K writes, I haven't heard your opinion yet, but don't be one of those folks who says it was just telekinesis. Rewatch the scene if you think so. Time stone magic. Again, I don't know. I've asked in the live chat, a lot of people in the live chat saying, no, it wasn't time. It wasn't time reversing. Now, again, I need to go back and watch that scene again. And I don't know that it was telekinesis. Have we ever known Loki to use a lot? I mean, usually it's more like illusion stuff that he does. But I'm not saying it was necessarily just telekinesis. But again, it didn't seem like it was time, like he was rewinding time or anything like that. But we'll see. It may. I got to go watch it again because maybe I'll watch it and I'll go, it was time. So he probably grabbed a time stone. Maybe. We'll see. Okay. Again, we lost track of where we were. Okay, here we go now. Epic Dub Time writes, I completely lost it when drunk Loki yelled another little callback to the first Thor film. Overall, my least favorite episode, but enjoyable. I don't even know. I agree. Least favorite episode. I'm not even sure I enjoyed it. I'm not even sure that I enjoyed it. Again, terrible dialogue. I found no chemistry between the two main characters of the episode. Just didn't work for me. No character development. One piece of information was actually conveyed during the entire episode. I didn't hate the episode. But I don't think I enjoyed it. I think I found it to be a waste of time. But for those of you who did enjoy it, thumbs up. I'm glad that you did. All right, next up. Cam K also writes, anyways, just writing to say I love the content. Joined during the WandaVision open spoiler discussions, and your personality and reasoning hooked me. Keep it up. Well, thank you so much for that, Cam. It's good that you've been around since then. Listen, even if we hit an odd episode that we don't like this one for me, I have loved what the MCU on Disney Plus has been so far. They have experimented. They've done new and different things, and I have eaten it up. I loved WandaVision. I really enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier. I've loved the first 2 episodes of Loki. And hey, you know what? Okay, we hit a speed bump with episode 3. We hit a bump with episode 3. I have all the faith in the world that we're going to get back on the highway once we hit episode 4. Anyway, it's good to have you here, Cam, and thanks for sharing the kind words. I appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Elif writes, Like Sylvie, seems to me she is a Loki variant. My guess is she wants to destroy the TVA to stop running from them. Still have some questions with her. I agree. And clearly, yeah, she says something about she needs to take down the suppressive thing that you're working for now. Again, we don't have a clear picture. We kind of understood that already from episode 2, but we still don't have a clear understanding of what is her end game. What's the end game here? I think there's so much more we don't know. And that's okay. It's okay that there's a lot we don't know. We still have 3 episodes to go. I just wish this episode gave us something. And I'm still, and again, Elif, I'm still a little bit dubious that she's actually a Loki variant. And again, this happens. Sorry about that, guys. Listen, guys, if this continues to happen, I'm probably going to stop the live stream and then just answer the rest of your questions in a pre-recorded video, because I'm sure this is annoying for you, all this stuff that I have to run around and try to find where we left off. You can imagine it's absolutely infuriating to me. Oh, it's a good thing I don't have headphones on right now. Oh, that's right. Let's see. CT, okay, that... Let's get back to our main thing here. Okay, there we are. So, Elif. So next up, Teddy Holiday writes, well, everyone was wrong. She is a Loki variant. I'm not so sure. This episode made me question that even more. I'll be honest with you. This episode made me question it even more. She technically is Enchantress too, but her origin is a Loki variant confirmed. You can say the word confirmed all you want. You can say confirmed all you want. Confirmed! It doesn't make it so. Now, again, it very well could work out that she is indeed a Loki variant, but while I had some questions about that in episode 2, if anything, this episode gave me even more doubts. Doubts, not 100% conviction, just doubts. I am kind of suspicious that she may indeed not be a Loki variant. There are a few other things that were said in this episode that makes me think there's a lot more behind her identity than we've seen yet. Maybe not, but we will find out. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Okay. Elif writes, timekeepers are variants. That's an interesting theory. The timekeepers are variants. Maybe Mobius was a guy from the 90s and sold jet skis or something like that. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Mobius learns the truth. I agree. I am actually very, very interested now to see. Well, I mean, okay, look, let me finish that one thought. It'll be very, very interesting to see what happens if Mobius finds out. There could be a scenario here. Follow me for a second. There could be a scenario here that, Mobius is happy. He loves his job. He loves his purpose. There could be a scenario here later in the show where Loki was going to tell Mobius about the fact that he wasn't created by the TVA and all that kind of stuff, and decides not to tell him. Just seeing that he's happy, he loves his life, he enjoys what he's doing, and maybe Loki makes the decision not to tell him. Now, I don't know that for sure. I obviously don't know that for sure. But I think there might be a possibility, because I initially thought, oh, for sure, we're going to get a scene where Mobius finds out that he's actually from Earth and all that kind of stuff. But it also could be interesting if Loki decides to spare him that and just lets him keep believing the lie because he seems happy. I mean, I don't know. Totally random thought. We'll see where they go with that. All right. Next up, Teddy writes, my prediction, Mobius is a Howard Stark variant. Interesting theory. Probably not, but interesting theory. Okay, next up. Elif writes, now that Mobius knows that Sylvie hides out on Apocalypse events, maybe he comes to retrieve... there we go. Maybe he comes to retrieve both Loki variants from Lamentis 1 at the beginning of episode 4. I mean, again, that's something I mentioned a little bit earlier myself too. Maybe it's Mobius who shows up and rescues them. Maybe it is. Because I was going to say, I did say earlier that there's no way he could have tracked them, but Maybe Mobius goes, well, since we can't track them, that must mean they're at one of the apocalypse events, and maybe he has a way of figuring out which apocalypse event they went to. And then he shows up there and finds them. I'm stretching. It's a stretch, but it would be an interesting situation if that's how they get off the world. All right, let's see. Next up, Josie Reviews writes, better club dance-off, Zemo or Loki? I'll go Zemo. I will go Zemo on that one. I will stick with that one with Zemo. All right, next up, Hero75 writes, this episode really reminded me of the episode of Doctor Who, but with two Time Lords who don't really trust each other instead of just one. Well, as somebody who does not watch Doctor Who, I can neither affirm or disapprove of what you just said. I suppose that's a possibility, but again, I don't watch Doctor Who, so I just don't know. But I'm sure everybody else who's watching this live stream knows Doctor Who, and they're like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, there you go. All right, next up. Concessions before credits writes, something felt way off to me. Hard to put my finger on it. This felt almost like a Doctor Who episode. You're the second person to say that. Not to mention Lady Loki just seemed like she was in an Adam Sandler time travel comedy. I completely agree. This episode felt so out of place with the other episodes in terms of quality, in terms of dynamics, in terms of chemistry. It just felt off. And of course, the other main things that I just never once, I don't feel like there's just no purpose in watching this episode. Just tell somebody TVA agents weren't created by the TVA. They are actually variants themselves. That's all they needed. Now you can skip to episode 4 and you won't miss a thing. There's not a single important story note that you would miss if you just skipped episode 3 and went right to episode 4. It's unfortunate, but I agree with you, Concessions. It just felt way off. Although it was visually beautiful. Some of that scenery work they did was chef's kiss. Was beautiful. Was really, really beautiful. All right, next up. Sam Fisher writes, while it wasn't my theory, I think the idea of all the TVA agents being variants is a great idea, but it also feels like it should have been more of a revelation than just a throwaway line. I completely agree. And you wrote this in 4 hours ago. I completely agree. It wasn't revealed in the flow of the narrative. It was just, oh, okay, well, let's start walking. Oh, by the way, TVA agents were not made by the TVA. Wait a minute, what? It was just kind of dropped there. Like the one important piece of information wasn't even revealed as a part of the narrative flow. It was just randomly dropped. So yeah, so you're not the only one who noticed that, Sam. I completely saw that too. All right, next up. Sam also writes, I also like how by making Loki do another gag. Oh yeah, that was funny. That was funny. I like that. Another gag. They turned something Chris Hemsworth ad-libbed into what would be a cultural gesture on Asgard. Completely agree. So that's what I said, right, a little bit earlier, is that I guess that's an Asgardian thing. If you really like something you just had, you say you like it, throw it on the ground and say another. And that's, I guess, your compliments to the chef. But yeah, I noticed that right away. Made me smile. It was a nice moment. That was a nice moment. All right, next up. Sam Fisher also writes, what language was Loki singing in? It said Asgardian. The closed caption says Asgardian, but was it another language like Icelandic or something they created for the MCU? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think if it was Icelandic, then it would have said Icelandic, wouldn't it? I got people in the live chat saying Celtic, Danish. It was Beowulf. I don't know. Norwegian. Yeah, I don't know. It just said Asgardian, but I have only ever seen Asgardian speaking English. So I don't know. Some people saying it was Norwegian. A bunch of people are saying Norwegian. Aaron, Purple, Army, Aaron, they're all saying it was Norwegian. I mean, obviously I do not speak Norwegian, so I cannot confirm that, but I'm sure it's something we could probably find out in there, but I guess that's what it is, Sam. All right. Thanks everybody for jumping in the live chat and putting that in there. All right. Next up, Spark the producer writes, the other day, someone on the show stated that B-15 looked like she had been woke. After episode 3, I believe that now too. Looking at Agent C-20 from episode 2, maybe? Because I remember that we talked about that in the pregame show, that after the enchantment was broken on her, somebody had mentioned that it looked like she didn't just wake up. It looked like she was now realizing something. Maybe TVA agents who get enchanted and, you know, the variant doesn't murder, maybe they wake up also knowing who she really is. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. Actually, that's really good that you brought that one back up, Spark. Thanks for that. I think that is relevant. All right, next up. Sam Fisher writes, there was a really great meme I saw on Frigga from Endgame telling Thor to eat a salad, and Thor's response was, why would I eat Asgard? Oh, I get it, because in the scenario, the salt and pepper was Asgard. I didn't see that one. Honestly, I don't think that meme's that great, but I didn't see it. Maybe if I saw it, it would be interesting. All right, next up. Steele Smith writes, really enjoyed the episode, but probably the worst out of the three. Oh, that I completely agree with you. Completely the worst out of the three. I was shocked, but not at the same time. I was shocked, but not at the same time when Lady Loki said the TVA were past variants. Yeah, a little surprised. I mean, listen, this is an MCU show. We expect some kind of big revelation, right? And finding out that the TVA were not just created by the Timekeepers, I'm not surprised that they said that. A little shocked, like, whoa, that's interesting information. But when you really reflect on what's going on, not that big of a shock, but definitely an important piece of information there. Anyway, thanks for putting that in there, Steele. Next up, Marie Seifring writes, what a sad metaphor. Love is a dagger. Fits with trust is for children and dogs. The only person who ever disappointed Loki was Frigga. Very lonely. Oh, the only person who never disappointed Loki was Frigga. Very lonely. I still remember watching Thor: The Dark World. And as much as a lot of us will slam on Thor: The Dark World a lot, it absolutely has some highlights. Thor: The Dark World absolutely has some highlights. And I remember watching Thor: The Dark World when Loki found out that the Dark Elves had murdered Frigga. I just remember being in theater, and I think I turned to Anne and said, they're fucked. They just pissed off Loki. They are now fucked. Oh, and I like, of course you felt the weight and the sadness of it. But if you think there was something that was going to just nuclear set off the god of mischief, the guy who nearly conquered the earth, the guy who nearly took out Thor, and then you just found they just killed his mother. I remember turning in, they're fucked. The Dark Elves are done, blah, 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 right? Fast forward now to 2021. Fast forward to 2021. And Loki loses a bar fight to two just regular human guys who throw him out a window. Anyway, it's just me. But yes, there is something, I really like that Frigga keeps being brought up because that was a really special connection. And like the one person in the MCU that he felt very deep affection for. Like obviously him and Thor have a connection, obviously. But nobody in the MCU has there ever been a character that Loki feels a very deep, real affection for than his mother. And I love that they keep referring back to that, and that works very well. All right, next up, Tree just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, dude. All right, Marie Seifring also writes, I didn't see drunk Loki being thrown bouncer style out the window of the Ark. His impulsiveness makes Loki his own worst enemy. I mean, that's true too, but drunk or not, he's Asgardian. And he's Frost Giant. He's both. He battles with Thor. I don't care that he's drunk. Those two guys grabbed his arms. He should have been able to go, pfft. It should have been nothing. It should have been nothing. Anyway, that's just kind of my take on it. Okay, next up. Marie also writes, waiting to see how the heck they get off this planet. Again, I like the idea that Mobius figures it out where they went and shows up. I am still leaning towards the temporal pad. I'm still leaning towards that he actually has the real one. That he's got the real one. And the broken one was the illusion. So, I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, next up. Tree now also sends in, disappointing. I felt myself not focused until they started to talk about the TVA, and I find it weird Loki didn't ask Sylvie what her plan was. I mean, look, there's so much wrong with this episode, dude. I completely agree with you. It was a letdown. This was a letdown episode, especially considering how truly wonderful the first two episodes were, at least to me. So I'm with you on that, man. I am with you on that. All right, next up, we got Suthius who writes, I had a feeling this episode wouldn't further the story overall, but I liked it nonetheless. Liking them two together, showing us Sylvie ain't all bad. Yeah, that girl who is burning people alive and killing them just to steal a device off them when she probably could have figured out another way just to, trap them and take the devices. No, totally good girl. Good girl. What's that? Want to burn them in oil? Let them die in screaming agony? Yeah, she's not so bad. She's just misunderstood. Come on, guys. Anyway, I'm just harping on it a bit. But yeah, I didn't know that I would feel like this episode would be a big story push, but I thought we would get a good information dump. Like, start giving us pieces to the puzzle that we can then start to put together as the show progresses. Right? And I felt like we didn't even get any of that. So no. So the story didn't progress. Okay. Then give us great dialogue. They didn't. Give us good character chemistry. They didn't. But again, it's all subjective. But that was my take on it. All right. Suthius writes, visually, this episode was the most beautiful. I agree. Now look, Loki looking out the window at the TVA and seeing the TVA city, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But I thought visually this was beautiful. All credit. It was beautiful to look at. It really was. Even amidst all the chaos and the destruction that was happening at the end of the episode, it was beautiful to see. I mean, the artists who made that did a terrific job again. Chef's kiss. Beautiful. Well done. All right, next up. Suthius writes, could this be a case of character having daddy issues and wanting revenge of some sort? Sylvie being the character and the daddy, possibly being a keeper. Maybe. I thought you were going to say that, she's actually a daughter of Loki. And by the way, I haven't thrown that possibility out either. That she very well could be a Loki daughter. So when you were saying daddy issues, I thought it could be like, don't call me Loki. What is a Loki? Maybe a Loki was her father. I mean, that's a possibility, but maybe the idea that one of the timekeepers is actually her dad and there's a daddy issue going on there. I mean, we saw that in, oh, damn it. What's the name of the show? The anime show with, the Beaumonts, the vampire hunters and Dracula in his castle, and it was named after the video game, and I'm totally freezing on it. And then you have Dracula's son going after her to hunt down and kill his dad, and I'm freezing on the name of it. Somebody in the live chat, give me the name of it. It wasn't Transylvania. Castlevania. Thank you. Max, Michael, Mr. Sunshine, Simon Washington, and everybody else. Castlevania. So yeah, there could be a little bit of a Castlevania thing going on there, where she's like this powerful offspring of an evil timekeeper and she's trying to bring everything down. It's like everybody knew it was Castlevania. I'm looking in the live chat now. Everybody knew it was Castlevania except me. I was going to say, I want to say it's Transylvania, but I know it's not Transylvania. What is it? Castlevania. Yes. So there could be a bit of that in there too. Yeah. There absolutely could be. Okay. Next up, where are we at here? Next up, we're at Bubble Baths. Right, so I like that username. One of two. Loki tested Sylvie. He chose a song in both Asgardian and English, and then deliberately paused after the Asgardian lyric to gauge her reaction. My theory, she's Enchantress. The relationship she talks about is Loki in her timeline. Her Loki taught her enchanting. She's trying to get back to him. I like that. I liked it so much. Let me read it again. And I'm not saying this is what it's going to be, but I love this theory. Let's read it again. Loki is testing Sylvie. He chose a song in both Asgardian and English and then deliberately paused after the Asgardian lyrics to gauge her reaction. My theory is that she is Enchantress. The relationship she talks about is actually Loki in her timeline. Her Loki taught her the enchanting. She's trying to get back to him. I'll tell you what, that's a really good. Aaron Medina in the live chat is saying he has the same theory. That's actually pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that. I don't know if that's what they're going to do. I don't know if that's what it is they're actually going for. But, dude, that's a really, really good theory. I dig it. I dig it. Well said. All right, next up. Bubble Bass then just puts in another one for a super chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, dude. Okay, guys, last one, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break, guys. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We've been going over an hour now. So we're going to take this last one, then we're going to take a bit of a break. Let's see. And Julian Flores saying, John, in episode 2, there's a file in it. Yeah, we know, but we don't even know if that's for the same Sylvie. We don't know if that's for the right variant. It could be completely wrong. It could be just a little Easter egg. It may be legit and it may not, so don't rely on it. Anyway, just don't rely on it. Michael Giles writes, when the techno hit at the start, I thought they may have teleported to Madripoor to have a dance session with Zemo. How awesome would that have been? Bum 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 bum. I love that song, by the way. That song they played in Madripoor, it's by a Filipino rapper, and I've got it on my YouTube music playlist. It's awesome. It's an awesome tune. Anyway, I thought they teleported to Madripoor to have a dance off with Zemo. Now that is glorious purpose. That indeed, my friend, was absolute glorious, glorious purpose. Okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little bit of a break here. I'm going to go refill my drink, give my vocal cords a little bit of a rest, give you guys a chance to talk amongst yourselves, use the bathroom, theorize all you want. By the way, we're only going to leave the super chats open for a little while longer. So if you've got an observation or something you want said, go ahead and use it as soon as you can, because then a little bit after we come back, I'm going to be shutting the super chats down so we can get through, hopefully we can get through all of the ones that you guys have sent in. So with that said, going to take a quick little short break. Talk amongst yourselves. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. I got my drink refilled. I rested my voice for a bit. Hopefully you guys had a chance to run, use the bathroom, do whatever. So now let's pick right back up, shall we? And we get back into it with Bubble Bath's rights. Very odd hard cut to her sleeping too. Yeah, it was an awkward kind of a cut. It was. Like a dream, Loki is playing Sylvie like she did with the TVA agent, where another similar hard cut was used. Could be. Could be. And by the way, what if Loki is lying about not knowing that enchantment trick? I'm not saying this is what it is. Understand, I am not saying this is what it is. But what if everything that has happened since Sylvie woke up off the table has all been in her head? That Loki, that entire thing of walking the train, after getting thrown off the train, walking the train out, getting there to the Ark, not being there in time, the Ark gets destroyed. What if all that is in her head? And they're actually still on the train. I'm not saying I believe that's what happened. I'm just saying it's an interesting theory that could be a part of it. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? All right, next up. Bubble Bath also writes, TVA device isn't broken. Sylvie will wake up on the train moon, collides with the planet after she shares her dying secret with Loki. It's all a ruse. Again, I right now am buying into the theory that he still actually has the functional pad. I am still buying into that theory. There are other options. Mobius shows up. For some inexplicable reason, a Bifrost appears. Maybe something else altogether, but right now, Bulbass, I'm buying into that theory. Raymond Reddington writes, "Hey, John. Loved episode 3. I'm glad one of us did. Best episode of season for me. I'm still good. Loved Lady Loki and Loki in this episode. They have fantastic chemistry." Well, again, you wrote that in before we started this thing, so you know how I feel about it. But the important thing is you liked it, and that's the important thing. So thanks for sharing that, man. All right, Pedro Faria writes, "I think this was the weakest episode. I agree. But I really enjoyed it. I love the interactions between Loki and Sylvie. Sophie DiMartino is a beautiful woman." Oh, I mean, no doubt that. Listen, Tom Hiddleston and Sophia DiMartino, they're both extremely attractive people. Absolutely. No doubt. I didn't like their chemistry at all. I thought they had zero chemistry. Unlike the chemistry between like Owen Wilson and Ravonna, which I thought that chemistry was really good, or the chemistry between Mobius and Loki, that chemistry was fantastic. I didn't feel any chemistry there at all, but I'm glad you did. All right, next up. Raymond Reddington also writes, "Found it really funny when Loki is pretending to be that lady's husband. I burst out laughing." Oh, yeah. It's me. I don't know. I didn't find that funny at all. I found it oddly predictable and rather anticlimactic. It's been so long. And then, oh, get it, the visual gag. He gets shot. I mean, we all saw that coming, right? Like, we all saw it coming. Now, the moment he walked around the corner looking like her dead husband or whatever, we all knew we're gonna see Loki flying across the dirt just like Sylvie did, right? Like, we all knew it was coming. I know, but I'm glad it worked for you, man. I'm glad it worked for you. All right. Redhead Media writes, "I thought variants were fixed as soon as they happened. How could Lady Loki have a backstory if she's a variant? Maybe she's not one, or am I mistaken?" Listen, there are multiple questions about that. Like, the moment the TVA detects a variation, they deal with it immediately, right? And hasn't her variation gone way red line already? I mean, because it seems everything they've set up so far is that once a variation happens, they've got a certain amount of time they have to fix it before it goes red line in multiverse. She's been planning this for years. She's killing agents. She's doing all this mayhem. So I don't know. It is. Look, just because it's something we don't understand yet does not mean it's not going to be explained in upcoming episodes, right? We've seen that happen before. So let's hang in there and see where they go with that. But yeah, it's a good observation, Redhead. All right, next up. Ben Rayner writes, "I like this episode because it was a good character study between Loki and Sylvie. I saw zero of that. Did seem filler-like, maybe, but for me it was solid. Fun moments throughout. There was a couple fun moments. Again, zero character development. Even all of Loki's dialogue was all stuff we already knew, right? Everything he said, talking about his mother and all. Yeah, okay, I got that. We've known that for like 8 years. We got it. We learned nothing new about Sylvie, really, except some vague stuff that could be interpreted one way or another. The story didn't get progressed. Yeah. But that does not mean that I believe it was devoid of anything good. That one piece of information was great. Another line was really fun. It was visually gorgeous. So yeah, I mean, there were definitely pros. There were definitely positives about this episode. I just, for me, it was personally a really big letdown. All right, next up, and that's coming from somebody who loved episode 1 too. Brian Croson writes, "Missing movies, but sometimes you need a break from steak to know how much you love it. Am I only one think Loki has been enchanted, but don't know it?" I think it might be the other way around, to be honest with you. Again, I only think it's like a 5% chance, but I think there might be like a 5% chance here. I think there's going to be like a 5% chance here. And that she is the one who's actually under an enchantment. That's my guess here, is that she's the one that's actually under an enchantment that Loki is doing to her to find out things about her. That's a possibility. We will find out. Now, hold on. This thing is freezing up here. Give me a minute. Let me bring up the BRB screen again here. Just give me a minute. We'll be right back. I'll see if I can get this fixed. Hold on a second. Okay, guys, I think we got it. I think we got it fixed up here. So let's try this again here, shall we? All right. That was Brian. Yeah. So again, I think it might actually be the other way around, but you never know. We will find out. All right. Raymond Reddington writes, my theory for how Loki, WandaVision, No Way Home, and Doctor Strange 2 are connected. At the end of Loki, the TVA are disbanded and Mobius and Loki create a new version of the TVA. Lady Loki causing problems in timeline along with Wanda trying to bring her kids back causes problems within the timeline, which we now see the repercussions of in No Way Home. Doctor Strange finds out about this and recruits Wanda to get him to help take care of what she has created in Doctor Strange 2. Maybe, I mean, that's a lot of reaching. I mean, it's a lot of reaching because remember, we're trying now to make predictions about what's going to happen in future properties when this one isn't even done yet. Like, we don't even know how this show is going to end. So, in trying to guess what's going to happen as a result of this show in the next movie or installment of the MCU, when we don't even know the resulting things of this show, I might suggest is a little bit premature. Might be a little bit premature. Now, I don't mind the one prediction, though, about how this might end, that we might see like maybe Loki and Mobius and maybe even Sylvie, although she has murdered a lot of people in the TVA, but maybe Mobius and Loki themselves recreate the TVA to do the job of what the TVA is actually supposed to be doing. I mean, that's a possibility that they could do. So I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting. But again, once you start skipping beyond this show, that we don't even know how this show ends, and we try to predict how the results of this show are going to affect Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange, that's just because that's building an if on top of another if on top of another if. And that gets to be really, really stuff there. But the idea of Loki and Mobius kind of reorganizing and reinstituting what the TVA is at the end, that could be where this show leaves off. It could be. So I don't know. We'll find out. All right, thanks for writing that in, Raymond. Next up, Brian writes, missing Mobius, me too, but sometimes you need a break from steak to know how much you love. Am I the only thing? Oh, you kind of already put that in there. No problem. Already got that. Thanks, Brian. All right, Raymond Renton writes, do you think the TVA are a bad or a good organization? I think they are good as they are trying to preserve the timeline. So there is obviously something amiss, right? I think that is something we all agree on. There is obviously something amiss with the TVA, clearly. Does that mean the TVA as a whole is an evil organization? I don't think so. Ask me again after episode 4, I could have a totally different answer. But I don't think it's a totally evil organization at this point. But obviously something's wrong. There's something going on behind the curtain, and it may have to change. But I am going to say right now that the fundamental purpose of the TVA, of maintaining the timeline, I'm going to say they are fundamentally a good organization with problems. That's what I'll say right now. But again, that's just me saying that based on the information that we have after 3 episodes. I may have a totally different answer after episode 4. Let's see where that goes. Raymond Reddington writes, what is your favorite part of the episode? Oh, another favorite part of the episode. Absolutely my favorite part of the episode. Another, harkening back to Thor in the first Thor movie. All right, let's see here. JMeister25 writes, yo, I'm feeling these different Marvel logo songs. Started with Infinity War. I'm all for it. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. I'm feeling these different Marvel logo songs. Oh, so you're talking, I'm going to guess what you mean is like they have different music and different songs that are playing while the logo plays. I mean, that's not official Marvel music. It's just that they're starting with a song that is meant for that first scene we're going to see. Yeah, I kind of like that too. Like this one, there was a song playing in the bar where the Variant and the soldier she had captive were hanging out and talking. And that's the music that's playing over the Marvel logo. Oh, yeah, I dig that too. It doesn't always have to start bum, 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 bum. It doesn't all have to start like that. So doing that, having the music carry over, or as they will say, L-cut, as the music L cuts into the scene where the music is actually playing. I do like that approach as well. I think it's pretty good. All right, next up. Jay Meister also writes, love how the chick who just blew up the timeline is sipping cocktails, and then it gets deadly serious. Yeah, like I remember that scene started. I'm like, because we didn't really see her hair before, but I'm like, isn't that the soldier that she kidnapped? And then it became obvious what they were doing. But it was, again, that opening was good. I like the cold open. I didn't like the episode, but I liked the cold open. The cold open was pretty good. All right. Next up, we've got A-Rod 2006 writes, I wonder if Thor in Sylvie's Loki's universe is a Mighty Thor version of Jane Foster. Again, I'm not even convinced that she's a Loki variant. I think there were enough little things being dropped that still give me some doubt that she's actually a Loki variant. There are some things she says that were very, very nebulous. Like really, like she would say something, but then it's like, well, that could mean a bunch of different things, or that was a little evasive, or that was oddly vague, right? I just, there's still enough there. Again, very well could be a Loki variant. I am not sitting here telling you, guys, don't you believe for a second that she's a Loki variant. She very well could be. Very well could be. I'm just saying I haven't completely bought into that yet because there's a few strange things. The idea of her being a Loki lover, a Loki daughter, or something like that. I think there's still other possibilities on the table, but we'll find out soon enough. All right, next up. Joe Byram writes, X-Men confirmed. Loki is Jubilee with an, that's actually a good reference, Joe. I like that. Well said. All right, next up. Fanblaze71 writes, anyone who complained about Loki not looking big budget went real quiet after this episode. The visual effects were insanely good. Yes, but people saying it doesn't quite look big budget weren't wrong when you look at the first couple of episodes. I mean, look, the reality is this. These shows do not have the budgets that the movies have. They just don't. They just don't. So, you know, I had somebody write into me the other day, and they said, hey, John, you know what you're talking about. They're spending $20 million an episode. Okay, great. But when you look at, you know, a movie, I think they actually said the real number was about $15 million an episode. Some episodes cost like 20 million, some 15, but let's go with this. At the end of the day, if they were to make a Loki big budget MCU film, it's probably costing in the neighborhood of 200 million. Like, it's not going to cost 300 million like an Avengers film, but you're probably talking in the neighborhood of 200 million. Hell, let's just say for the sake of argument, $180 million. That breaks down to $90 million per hour of what you're seeing on screen, assuming the movie's about 2 hours long. So that breaks it down to $180 or breaks it down to $80 million or $90 million per hour. Well, we know that the Loki budget is somewhere between 15 and 20 million per episode. Okay. That means probably when it's all said and done, after 6 episodes, you're looking at about $100 million. $100 million for 6 episodes. You're roughly looking now at, instead of the movie has 90 million per hour, you're now talking about having something in the neighborhood of 20 million per hour, right? So Kevin Feige can say all he wants that we are giving these the budgets. Yes, the shows have the same, or not even the same budgets, but comparable budgets to the movies, but the shows are putting out 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of content with that exact same budget or even less than the movies do. So the movies are cranking out content with about 90 million per hour being put into it, while the shows are having somewhere between, like I said, 15 to 20 million per hour. That's less than a third. That's about a quarter. It's a quarter of dollars per minute being spent on the content. So people hear Kevin Feige say, we're going to put movie level budgets into these shows. And so they instantly think is, then we're going to have the exact same production value throughout the entire show. But when you actually break it down, it's not that at all. On a per minute basis, they're actually spending 3 to 4 times less on the shows than they are on the movies. And that makes perfect sense because the movies are going to make you a lot more money than the shows are. So you put more money there. You know what I'm saying? You put more money there. So, yeah. I mean, there you go. They're spending about 3 times less on a per hour basis on these shows than they are in the movies. So obviously, it's not every episode and not every scene is going to have a big budget feel. And certainly those who criticized Loki about not having a big budget feel, yeah, they've got a point for the first 2 episodes, but I'd also say to those people, it's a lot better than most television. And for TV, it's incredible what they're doing with that money. It's incredible. And so I think you're going to get some episodes that will put more money into them. Like I think it's clear this episode had a lot of money put into it. The visual effects were fantastic. Again, chef's kiss. Mwah. It was beautiful. And the other times, sometimes it feels a little bit lower budget because it does not really have the same budget as the movies. It really has, on a per hour basis, 1/3 to 1/4 of the budget of the movie. So clearly it's not going to look like the movies the whole way through. Hopefully they'll give us moments that look like they're on par with the movies. Like this one did. This one had some moments that visually look like it was on par with the movies. And sometimes it won't because it just doesn't have the same budget. So anyway, there's that. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Fanblaze. All right, next up. Aaron Medina writes. Where are we at? Aaron from El Paso, Texas has been watching for 4 years. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that, dude. The CGI, visual effects, and practical effects were so good it distracted me from the story or lack thereof. And again, yeah, I agree. The visual effects and the design and everything in this episode were top-notch. Absolute top-notch. And I wish it helped distract me from the lack of story. I do wish it distracted me from it like it distracted you. But overall, I thought the visual effects work in this episode were fantastic. All right, JMeister25 writes, this episode has given me exactly what I want from Marvel. Militant police forces directing civilian life. More stories like Lamitus 1, please. I mean, yeah, but again, when you get to that was a world in absolute crisis, right? That was a world in crisis. Anywhere that is experiencing an almost apocalyptic like crisis or potential of that kind of crisis, you're going to get martial law. So I don't know if we got an accurate look at Lamitus 1 or if we were just seeing them in absolute crisis and trying to manage in a state of martial law at that point. So I mean, I don't know. So I'm going to try to be fair to the government of Lamentus 1. All right, next up. We got Aaron Medina who writes, I swear to God, if they use the time stone, yeah, look, Like, I'm not going to throw my shoe at the TV if they bring the time stone into it again. Because again, I get it. 13 years of the Infinity Stones. 20 plus movies, 13 years where everything's revolved around the Infinity Stones. It is time to effing move on. So I hope it's not a time stone they pull out of their ass. If it is, I'm not going to throw my shoe at the TV. I'm not going to turn off Loki. I'll just give a very deep sigh and put my face in my hands. And then we'll move on. But I hope it's not. All right, next up. Jack121 writes, one of two, theory. Sylvie is Loki's daughter. Again, yep, that's one of the theories I'm seeing popping up. Is Loki's daughter that was created using magic as a result of his inability to find true love. TVA did something to him in that universe, and now she wants revenge. Her odd reaction to him singing hints that it was a song he sang to her when they were together. Maybe. Again, Jack, I am... Not that I'm buying into it, but I'm on board with the notion that it is a possibility here that Sylvie is something other than a Loki variant. Maybe she's the daughter of a Loki variant, or the sister of a Loki variant, or a lover of a Loki variant. There's a lot of possibilities there, and I am not dismissing those ones. I think those are valid notions that we could see come to play. So is it actually that's what's going to happen? We'll find out. All right. Next up, William Dixon writes, I swear Loki can't even get a break. Poor guy. I guess it's better than his non-variant counterpart getting his neck snapped and all. Yeah. He might want to be happy that he checked out of the timeline with the Tesseract as he did once he saw what Thanos was doing to his neck. Yeah, glad I'm not in that guy's shoes. But again, whether it's all in Sylvie's mind because Loki's enchanting her, or whether Mobius shows up, or whether he actually has the temporal pad, which I think is what's going to be, they're getting out of that, obviously. They're getting out of it. Or a Bifrost or something. They'll get out of it. But I think he knows it. I think Loki is totally aware that he can just snap his fingers and end this thing. But we'll see. We'll find out next week if that's the case. All right, next up. Rylan Holman writes, I like the episode, but it wasn't my favorite. I wanted more information. Dude, I wanted anything. Some character development, some information. You don't have to put the puzzle together for us in episode 3, but give us the pieces to the puzzle that we can at least start putting together for the rest of the show. I agree, but I'm glad you liked it. I didn't hate it. And with the amount of criticism I'm throwing at it, you could be forgiven if you're thinking John hated the episode. I didn't hate it, but I was thoroughly disappointed, especially considering how good the episodes have been so far. But that's just me. All right, next up. Lars Hansen writes, Loki episode 3 was not a bad episode, but it was clearly the weakest to date and feels like an unnecessary filler. Loki seems out of character in this episode. The whole train part was not the Loki we know. Okay, here's the thing, Lars. I don't know that I would necessarily agree that it was completely out of character. I do think the entire sequence on the train was useless. Completely useless. And if we find out later that when she fell asleep on the table, he actually put her in an enchantment and everything that happened after that point was all in her head, that would be interesting. But yeah, no plot development, no story progression, no character evolution, no information other than the TVA part, which was vital and important. And some good moments, beautiful scenery, great CGI work. Another moment, the cold open I thought was quite good. So yeah, there you go. All right. Thanks for that, Lars. I appreciate it, man. Next up, OJ writes, when John explained how time travel works in Loki, I imagine Paul Rudd saying, so Endgame was just a bunch of bullshit. So Endgame was just, by the way, that part in Endgame, so good. No, I mean, again, my whole thing was just because the timeline has these beings living outside of it and the timeline is played through and it is now set, that doesn't take away anything from all the importance of the things that happen within the timeline. It's still vitally important. It doesn't change anything. Anyway, that's my thought on that, OJ. All right. Rylan Holman writes, I think that there are multiple Mobiuses, and I've been saying that for a little while. I think there are multiple Mobiuses, and that the one we have known will die. Also, can't wait for Richard Grant to show up. Yeah, I've been kind of sitting around waiting. When's Richard Grant getting here? Now, granted, we are only halfway through the show, but we are halfway through the show. I mean, it is very possible he may not show up till the finale. Right? I mean, that's a very real possibility. He may not actually show up until the actual finale. But, then we'll go from there. But yeah, I've been saying for a while, I kind of am starting to believe that there are multiple Mobiuses. Again, there is some precedent for that in the comics. Mobius is cloned a lot in the comics. That doesn't mean they're going to do it in the show, because the comics are the comics, the show is the show, but there is some precedent for it. The whole thing about, there's already rings on the desk. You put him there. I bet that was a different Mobius. Oh, who gave you this pen? I bet it was a different Mobius that gave it to her, but I don't know. So I'm buying into that, Rylan, I am. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, Loki copied my reaction after each episode. Another smash. Well, that's at least, look, if nothing else, the thing that Loki episode 3 did for me is it made me really excited for the next episode, because I want another great episode of Loki. And I believe episode 4 will be great. I believe it'll be great. This one let me down, but I believe they will not have 2 bad ones in a row. And I believe the next one's going to be awesome, and we'll finally get some movement again, and it's going to be great. So yes, even though I didn't really like this episode, it has done nothing but make me even more excited for next week to get here. So I'll say that. I'm very excited for next week to get here. All right, next up. That was Ryan Lohner. Next up is Cody Hunt, who writes, I firmly believe now that the timekeepers are just symbols. I think the man behind the curtain is going to be Richard Grant's character. Well, listen, by the way, they don't have to be 2 mutually exclusive things, Cody, right? It's not that there's either timekeepers or there's Richard Grant. What if Richard Grant is a timekeeper? I'm not saying that's what it's going to be, but I'm saying they don't necessarily have to be 2 mutually exclusive ideas. It could be one and the same, maybe, but we'll find. But yeah, the whole notion that they could just be symbols. Look, again, go back to the Wizard of Oz illustration, right? That there was still a Wizard of Oz. It just wasn't the Wizard of Oz that they thought it was. It's not like they went behind the curtain in Wizard of Oz and there was nothing there. They went behind the curtain and there was a man there. So they thought the Wizard of Oz was this big electric head thing, but really it turned out to be the man behind the curtain, but still there was something. The timekeepers, we may find out, may not be the 3 giant lizards that we think they are, but it's still somebody's there, I think. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. All right. Next up, Mike Farino writes, only thing that really occurred story-wise was learning everyone the TV is a variant. I completely agree. And again, you wrote that in just before we started the show. So yeah, before you even heard me say it, you're right. That is the only thing of relevance that happened in this episode. And I'll go back to it. I said it before. I'll say it again. If you've got a buddy who hasn't watched episode 3 yet, and they ask you, do I need to see episode 3? You tell them, nope, you don't need to see episode 3. All you need to know is this one thing, that everyone in the TVA is actually a variant. They weren't made by the timekeepers. After that, you're totally good to skip the episode and just wait till episode 4. And that's unfortunate. That's not the way these shows should work, especially when there are only 6 episodes in the entire frickin' season. How come other TV shows can have 22 episodes in a season and make them all thoroughly enjoyable? I don't know. Well, whatever. That's just me. All right, next up, Gary Phillips writes, hey, John, hope you're doing good. I am doing good. Thank you, my friend. Do you cover anime like Demon Slayer? Nope. And My Hero Academia? Question 2, what do you think? I don't cover that stuff. Question 2, what do you think the Loki post-credit scene will be? Right. So going into episode 4, is when I expect we will start, because this is right about the time in the other shows as well. This is right about the time in WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier that they started putting in post-credit scenes. Now, I haven't got the foggiest of what the post-credit scene will be in episode. So I believe we will get post-credit scenes in episodes 4, 5, and 6. I don't know that. I haven't been given or fed that information by anybody. That is just my guess right now. But I think it's a pretty solid guess. So I think it's going to be episode 4. But right now, since episode 3 gave us nothing, I have no idea what we're going to see in episode 4. The only thing I could say is, by the end of episode 4, I think I'll be able to formulate, like when episode 4 ends and the credits start, right there, I think I'll probably be able to come up with a guess or two about what we're about to see in the post-credit scene. But right now, dude, I haven't got the foggiest. Like, not the foggiest. The one, I'll give you one guess. Here's my guess. My guess is, and by the way, Gary Phillips sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that, man. Here's my one guess. My one guess is, and tell me what you guys think, that the post-credit scene of episode 4 will be a flashback of Sylvie that actually gives us her identity. A flashback of something on some planet, and then we see Sylvie, and it's going to be with old man Loki, her father, or middle-aged Loki, her lover, or something else, or an alive Frigga teaching Loki's sister magic. I don't know, whatever. But so my one completely baseless guess right now is that our post-credit scene in episode 4, at the end of episode 4, will be a flashback that actually gives us the real identity of Sylvie. Whether she's legitimately a Lady Loki, legitimately Enchantress, a mix of the two, a lover of Loki, a daughter of Loki, a cousin of Loki, the accountant of Loki, whatever, I think that's where we'll get it. But I could totally change my mind on that 5 minutes into the next episode. 5 minutes into the next episode, I can completely change my mind on that. All right. We keep going on here. That was Gary. Thanks for that, Gary. Next up, we got Cody Hunter writes, it turns out that the TVA aren't just a species that the viewer sees. These are variants. I'm curious if all of the TVA were taken from Earth. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Asgardians look human. Lamentus 1, they all look human. There are a bunch of worlds that I suppose look like humans. So, I don't know. Maybe they were all from Earth, but they could also be from a lot of other planets where they all look human too. So, it's possible. It's possible. We'll see. Let's see. Next up, we've got JMeister25 writes, John, I respect your opinion, but I completely disagree with you on this episode. That's fair. You're allowed to be wrong. We may not have learned more of the plot and overall story, but to me, this was a characterization piece, 3 episodes left. I'd like to agree with you. And listen, it's all subjective. Just because I disagree with you, that doesn't delegitimize your feelings on it, right? Like, just because I think this episode was what it was a complete waste. But just because I feel that way, that doesn't delegitimize your feelings if you felt it had value. That's all that's important here. The only thing that's important is, did you enjoy it? Did you feel it had value? Do you feel like you got something out of it? It doesn't matter what I think about it. I am here to give you my perspective, but that shouldn't change yours, nor should it make you question yours. You know, your feelings on it or your feelings on, that's all that matters. Now, to me, this wasn't a characterization piece. Now, I'm only speaking from my personal point of view. To me, it wasn't a characterization piece because there was no characterization going on. There was no character evolution. There was no character development. We know next to nothing new about Sylvie that we didn't know by the end of episode 2. We know nothing new about Loki that we didn't know about Loki 8 years ago in Thor: The Dark World. That's my take on it. That's my take on it. And only my take on it. But if you feel otherwise, nothing wrong with that. That's great. See, here's the thing. We don't need to agree. We don't get together to talk about things so we can just hear each other parrot back what we already think. John says he thought this episode was disappointing. Then we all must say we thought this episode was disappointing. No, not at all. The whole fun of getting together to talk about these things is to hear each other's different points of view. And your point of view was that you thought there was value and some good stuff in this episode. And I'm glad to hear it. And I'm glad to hear why you thought that. And I'm going to tell you why I disagree. I thought it was kind of a waste. I didn't think there was anything. And I'm there to share it. So it's about having sometimes agreeing, sometimes disagreeing. It's all good. You guys don't come watch me just so you can hear me say exactly what you already think. Right? That would be kind of scary. Nor will I always be right. It's just about expressing our own kind of personal thing. Remember, I've always said this. My job, and this is important, my job is not to tell you what you already think. All right? That's not my job. I know there are some YouTubers that they think that's their job. I got to tell the audience what they already think. I got to say what is popular. I got to say what is the cool thing right now because I have to say what the audience wants to hear. That is not me. My job is not to tell you what you already think, nor is it my job to convince you to agree with me. And I know there are some YouTubers that feel that way, that it's their job to beat you into submission to make you agree with them. That's not my job at all. My job, and you've heard me say this before, my job as a pundit is to give you my honest opinion on something and explain my opinion in such a way that it helps you sharpen what you think. So if me explaining why I didn't like something only affirms to you why you did like it, then that's me doing my job. In my opinion, then that's me accomplishing my job. If me giving you my opinion and explaining my opinion in such a way helps you focus about why you agree with me, great, then I've done my job. Either way, right? That's what it's all about. So if you disagree with me on this episode of Loki, that's a good thing. That's great. And I'm glad that you liked it. I celebrate that. But it doesn't change the way I feel about it any more than the way I felt about it should change the way you feel about it. So anyway, there's that. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, J Meister. Next up, Tim Platt writes, I think part of the problem is the Loki/Sylvie dynamic had to follow the Loki/Mobius dynamic, maybe. I don't think the Loki-Sylvie dynamic is awful. It just doesn't hold a candle to the Loki and Mobius dynamic. I completely agree. And I think, again, that's not an issue of the actress. I don't think that's an issue of Tom Hiddleston. I think that's an issue of the writing. Writing, which has been, to me, stellar up until this point. Right? So it's odd. It's odd that I felt so bored by the dialogue between Loki and Sylvie when just the simple dialogue between Mobius and Loki had me completely enthralled. Completely enthralled. So anyway, it's interesting. It's an interesting kind of juxtaposition there. All right, next up. Francesca De Pisa writes, I liked it, but I think it was difficult because Loki was conversing with himself. I think we have to come to terms with the MCU missing the ball once every 18 episodes. So I like that. There you go. Francisca has come up with the math. It is once every 18 episodes. Every 18 episodes, you can expect a little bit of a dud. By the way, I don't think that's going to be it, but if their ratio actually ended up being 18 great episodes or 17 great episodes to one bad one, like every 18 episodes you get one, that would be the greatest success ratio in the history of television. Not even Game of Thrones or Battlestar Galactica had that kind of a winning percentage. So maybe it's like every 18 episodes, that's it. So Francesca, she's just found out. She put her finger on the pulse of what the breakdown is going to be. So now we know whatever show is happening, whether it's Ms. Marvel or Hawkeye, 18 episodes from now in the MCU on Disney Plus is when we can expect the next dud of an episode. All right. Next up. Han Solo writes, I enjoyed episode 3, but it's definitely we're saving our budget for another episode, so this is going to be 95% filler. But the funny thing is that they didn't save their budget on it because the thing looked beautiful, right? Words written on a page don't cost money. The visual effects do. So, yeah, it did feel like we only have so much good narrative, so this is going to have to be our time killer episode, I guess, which is maybe why it was only like 37 minutes long. But the budget was definitely good. The budget on this one was definitely spent. They spent budget on this one, hon. All right, next up. Teddy Holiday writes, we don't have time for filler side quests. It's only 6 episodes. I agree. Like when you have, first of all, I think shows should be 20 episodes long. My entire life, I've watched TV shows that were great, that were 20-something episodes long. Yeah, every once in a while you have filler, but guess what? This excuse people make for short seasons, like 8-episode seasons, is, well, you don't want filler episodes. Guess what? They all still have filler episodes, even when they're 8 episodes long. Hell, even when they're 6 episodes long. Even when they're 6 episodes long, they put in a filler. There's no excuse for there being filler episodes when you are the length of a bus ride. Like if I can watch your entire season of shows, if I can watch your entire season on a flight from here to Toronto, you have no excuses for filler episodes. You have no excuses for filler episodes. I don't even have to fly to the Philippines. A simple flight from Los Angeles to Toronto, I can watch the entire season of Loki. There is no excuse for filler episodes. Guess what? I just watched Mare of Easttown on HBO Max. I think it was 8 episodes. Correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat there. I think there was 8 episodes. Oh man, there wasn't a filler minute in that show. Not a minute of filler material in that. It was like every single scene of Mare of Easttown was either giving us deeper character understanding, progressing the plot, expanding our understanding of the environment and the situation, or dropping clues. Every single scene of Mare of Easttown, 8 episodes, boom, all no filler, all thriller. You know, no excuse for that in a 6 episode. Again, I'm not crap talking the Loki show. So like up until episode 3, I think it's been dynamic, awesome. I love it so far. And I'm sure episode 4 is going to be great, but yeah, no excuse for a filler episode like this with just 6 episodes. Just my take. Could be wrong. You may disagree, and that's okay. All right. Next up, Cody Hunt writes, as soon as I saw the runtime, I knew this was going to be a single location character building episode. Usually it's a flashback episode in a lot of series. Yeah, again, it was a little off-putting. Not off-putting, jarring. It was a little bit jarring when I loaded up the episode and I realized how short it was compared to the first 2 episodes, right? But maybe the first 2 episodes just spoiled us a little bit. Anyway, thanks for that, Cody. Next up, Hamza writes, really love this episode. Reminded me of Doctor Who. That's like the 3rd person who said it was a Doctor Who sort of thing. I guess that one's going over my head because I don't watch Doctor Who, but you're like the 3rd person, Hamza, who'd write in the Doctor Who thing. So there you go. All right. Next up. Mike Farino writes, I still wonder if Loki stole one of the stones from the TVA. It's a possibility. I hope not, but it's absolutely a legitimate possibility. Probably how they escape next episode in my mind. Again, it is possible. It's possible he could pull out the Tesseract. He could pull out the Time Stone, or he could pull out something. I still think it's one of the temporal pads. The temporal pads, I think that's it. I think he's going to pop out. He's going to hand out his hand like he did with the Tesseract with Thanos, and it appear. I think just as the world's about to end and Sylvie's like, this is not your fault, he's going to go, and the real pad will appear in his hand and they'll use it and get away. But it could be one of the stones, Mike. You could be right. We'll find out next week. Teddy Holiday writes, Yoki. That's it. You can tell I've been doing a lot of shows today, guys. Yoki, that's Loki's other brother, Yoki. He's a comedian. does the night circuit tour. Yoki, the joke teller. Yoki with the jokes. Yoki used telekinesis in Dark World. Yeah, see, I thought I remember him using Yoki. I just can't put it when. So you're probably right, Teddy. You're probably right. All right, K. Munoz writes, one of two. I didn't like how this Loki seemed really dumb. From getting drunk to breaking the portal device, I kept waiting for Loki to reveal that it was an illusion and she had fallen for his ploy, and it seems out of character for Loki to simply accept Sylvie's non-answers to his questions. I agree with you. Loki is a genius. At least he's supposed to be. When you go back to the first Avengers and you see him, this intricate plan that he had in place, the way he played them all with Hulk, the way the eye thing, like he had this big grand plan and scheme. And then in this episode, it comes across as kind of dumb. But that's part of the reason, Kay, why I suspect, and I'm only saying suspect, it's one of the reasons that I suspect that from the moment that she wakes up off the table on the train, that they might actually be inside of her head. And this is actually Loki enchanting her, that she fell asleep on the table, he enchanted her, and that everything that has happened since in that episode has been inside of her head. Again, I don't know that that's the case. Not at all. It could very well and probably is something else. But I am just saying it makes me suspect. It makes me suspect that that's what's happening. But who knows? We'll find out. We'll find out. All right, next up. DJ Taterskins writes, visually, it reminds me of Blade Runner a bit, which I loved. I didn't like the explanation of who she actually was. Felt very muddy. That's the point, DJ. It's so muddy, I don't think we got any actual explanation as to who she is. And I get it. Before everybody says,
but John, in episode 2 of the dossier,
that doesn't mean anything. It could, listen, it very well could be she's exactly how they're laying it out. She is a female Loki variant. Could very well be. But I agree with you. It's so muddy that I am dubious of that. I think there is more to the story. So whether she is a daughter of Loki or a lover of Loki or something else entirely, some distant descendant of Loki, I don't know. But it just seemed a little too nebulous, a little too vague, a little too muddy. But again, we'll find out. We'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. All right, next up. Power is Power writes, still looking forward to future installments, but this episode felt like Wednesday TV, not Friday night primetime can't wait TV. I agree. I agree on both counts. I think this was a very pedestrian episode that was kind of a letdown. But all it's done is made me even, because I know how great this show can be because of how good episodes 1 and 2 are, all it's done is made me more excited for next week. It really has. I am more amped and excited for next week because this episode disappointed me than I think I would have been if this episode was great. Maybe that makes no sense, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. All right. Let's see. Next up, we've got Charlie Jeffrey Hood writes, although I liked the one take at the end of the episode, kind of felt like it just made the ending more abrupt. A little bit. Like it was building to something just to say, find out next week, and not in a good way. I agree. Now look, I'm not saying I don't like cliffhangers. I do. But I like it when you give me something and then tease something more, right? There's a sex joke in there somewhere that I'll spare you the details. There's a sex joke in my head that I will totally bypass. But that's what I like in episodes of almost any TV series. Give me something and then tease something more. Don't make the entire episode just one long tease. Don't just make it one big tease. You know, where it's like, oh, maybe something important happens here, but you're going to have to wait until next week to find out. I'm like, you know, because they kind of did that to us. You know, Am I saying that Loki blue balled us a little bit? Yep. I'm saying that. I'm saying Loki episode 3 gave us the blue balls a little bit. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, next up, Alan Swanson just sends in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that, man. Kay Munoz writes, the last sequence was stunning. It was. It was, listen, with all the criticism I'm throwing at the episode, it's important to point out that there were some definite highlights in it, and that the visual, the choreography of the whole sequence and the visuals of the sequence was beautiful. Absolutely was. The last sequence was stunning. The long shot following them through the city on the verge of ruin reminded me of Blade Runner and Game of Thrones. I don't know that I had a Game Runner or a Game of Thrones feeling, but it was great. I wish there was more narrative substance to it. One of the sayings that I have that I use on my show a lot is that action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. I'll say it again. I should put it on a t-shirt one of these days. Action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. Now, while I don't think that closing sequence in Loki was just visual noise, it was beautiful and well done, I do wish there was more narrative imperative to it. I do wish there was more narrative purpose to it. But it was like full marks, all due credit. It looked beautiful. All right, next up, KM Reviews writes, I don't think she's a Loki variant. They reset timelines based on the smallest things. How could a completely different gender Loki exist with a different history? Enchantress makes more sense. And no, listen, I completely agree with that. There is clearly more to this than we know. Some of which they should have given us in episode 3, but they didn't. But there is clearly more to this. Because if she was just a variant, then if she is a Loki, here's the thing. If she is a Loki, then the moment she was born female, that should have sent the TVA into action. Now, you could make the argument that, well, what if, she is a Loki and just at one point in time just decided I'm going to be female now. Being Loki and having the abilities of Loki, just decide I'm going to be female now. And Loki became Sylvie. And that became the variance. And what if, theoretically, when we hear Sylvie talking about the oppressiveness of the TVA and all that kind of stuff, it's all about them not wanting that Loki to be female. Which would be a big variance, yes, but it could fit in. Now, since I don't think the show Loki is going to be completely about gender identity, not saying that there's anything wrong if they did want to make the show about that, that's fine, but I don't think they are. Since I don't think they're making Loki one big show about gender identity, I don't think that's the case, and therefore it raises a question. If this Sylvie is a variant, it means that she was a variant from birth. And why didn't the TVA deal with that variance when it happened? So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on with this that I still think the waters are still very muddied, as somebody put it a little bit earlier. I still think the waters are very, very muddied. All right, next up. Power is Power writes, random thought, I know, but should Loki technically be blue when in the TVA? It depends. It depends. Because I think, let's put it this way. If you cut off 2 of your fingers, your body was not naturally an 8-fingered body, right? Your body wasn't naturally an 8-fingered body. It's just that at some point, 2 of your fingers got cut off. If you go into the TVA, will you have all 10 fingers again? No, because at some point you became a 8-fingered individual. My guess, and it's only blind fan speculation, don't get mad at me if you don't like this theory. I am only guessing. I'm not saying I'm totally invested in this, okay? My guess with Loki is at some point, the Allfather just basically made him look like an Asgardian. And so it's not like there's an ongoing enchantment on him that makes it. It's just that Odin, through his power, changed him. And instead of being a little frost giant, he looked like a little Asgardian. And so therefore, going into the TVA where enchantments are all turned off, he doesn't change appearance, because whether it's by taking a knife to 2 of his fingers or whether it's by Odin made him that way, that's how he looks now. That is how he looks. So again, that's just my guess. I don't know. We'll have to see what they do. Okay, next up. All right. Mukbang Reviews writes, "Hello, Mr. Campea. Hello. Thanks for your shows. Thank you for watching them. I want to know if Kimberly will ever be on live shows. She's fantastic, knowledgeable, and I love your banter." Well, I have had her on a live show before. And by the way, this is not the place to ask questions like this. We're here to talk about the spoilers for Loki. I mean, there are different times to ask questions. I'll just say this. I have had her on a live show before, but I don't have plans for her to regularly appear on live shows. I've got her to help me out with companion videos. She does a great job with that. Excellent job. We just put one up yesterday. She does a great job on those, but I don't have plans to use her regularly on live shows. No, but you never know what change. But again, this isn't the forum to ask that question, but thanks for writing in. All right. J Nova 121 writes, "Is it possible she actually did enchant him?" Possibly. I think, like I said, I think it's the other way around though, Jay. I think it's the other way around. All right. Jeff Curley writes, "One of however many. I'm starting to suspect that Sylvie may be a young version of Frigga." Oh my God. I didn't think about that. That's interesting. "I'm starting to suspect that Sylvie may be a younger version of Frigga, Thor's mom, who rejected Loki when Odin brought him home." Ooh, listen, I don't know if you're right or not, but that's a juicy story to tell. When Odin brought him home and didn't want to adopt him. She wants a life without being his mother, but the TVA won't let her. She's a magic user and she hates the name Loki, and she's kind of framing him by assuming his identity, but she learned a lot about how much Loki loves her as his mom, maybe the kind of love she actually meant in Love is Hate conversation. Not totally convinced, but I'm keeping an eye out for more concrete evidence. Love the show." Dude, again, I'm not saying I'm buying into your theory. Not at all, because that's probably not it at all. But I love your creative thinking. That's some righteous creative thinking right there. That's a cool story. Like, I don't think that's where they're going. I'll be honest with you. I don't think that's where they're going. But damn, that's a story I'd like to hear told. There's a little bit of Game of Thrones in that too, right? Because the whole reason Jon Snow is because, Ned's wife didn't want to, because, he's the son of a different woman. And she didn't want to actually make him through and through a Stark, because he was a symbol of the betrayal of her husband. So maybe there's a little bit of that in there. I don't know, but I love the theory, dude. I don't think it's what they're doing, but I love the theory. By the way, Mal3D sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you for that, Mal. Appreciate that. Okay. Thanks for that, Jeff. I love it. Love the way you're thinking. Eduardo writes, "I suspect Richard E. Grant is playing He Who Remains. Thanks for answering my questions last night. I so trust myself to bend space and time at will." I can't remember what your questions were last night. We did a lot of them. We had a lot of questions last night. I cannot remember which ones were yours. But again, the Richard E. Grant thing, whether he is a timekeeper or something completely else, I hope we get him sooner rather than later. But like I said a little bit earlier, I am starting to suspect that we aren't going to get him until the last episode. I don't know that. Don't know that. I'm just saying I'm starting to suspect that we're not going to get him until the last episode. Hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see him pop up in the next one. By the way, Eric Benson just sends in a really nice, like a $20 super chat with an adorable emoji thing there, the little cute thing getting hugged. That's great. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the support, man, very much. Thank you for being here, dude. All right. Next up, Alan Swanson writes, Remember Wanda to use the runes to nullify magic? Is the TVA be controlled by somebody that does magic like another Loki variant or sorcerer? I don't think so. Going back to the remote control. Remember, the TVA, as far as my understanding right now, is that could totally change in a week or two. But the TVA exists outside of the timeline. They exist outside of the reality. They exist outside of it. Magic and all that stuff, it works within reality, but once you step outside of it, that stuff doesn't apply. I don't think it requires, like, for instance, I don't think any of the sorcerers, even the Scarlet Witch, has enough power to override an Infinity Stone, right? She got her power boost from an Infinity Stone. She doesn't have the power to overpower an Infinity Stone, right? Or to cancel out an Infinity Stone. She could use the power of an Infinity Stone in her to eventually overload another Infinity Stone, but I don't think there's any hex or spell that could be cast that would be enough to override and cancel out the power of an Infinity Stone. So what happens when you get to the TVA? Drawers full of Infinity Stones. And they're all just useless rocks there because they're all get their power from within reality. Once you step outside of reality, that's it. It doesn't apply anymore. It just doesn't apply. So I suspect, Alan, that no, we don't have some kind of magic runes canceling out magic. I think it's just a matter of that it's not within the reality that magic would work. That's my guess. Could be wrong. Ask me again after next episode because I could totally change my mind on that. All right. Next up, Mad1306 writes, Does this episode retcon the first openly gay character in Endgame by openly confirming that Loki is bi? I don't know what you mean by that. Does it retcon the first openly gay character in Endgame? Are you talking about Valkyrie? I don't know what you mean by retcon. At any rate, there's a difference between gay and bi, right? So listen, it's always been, even in Norse mythology, that Loki has been bisexual, right? So that's not new information. That's really not anything new. We've also never seen Loki in the MCU. Like, it's not like they're changing anything, right? Because they've never said in the MCU that Loki was human, straight, heterosexual. It's not really a tremendously unusual thing. So I don't think anything's been retconned. I don't think anything's been changed. I think we just found out something that I think it's just something that part of the legend of the character of Loki. So I don't think it's anything new or different. So no, I don't take it as a retcon. Or maybe I'm just misunderstanding the question, which is very possible. I've been speaking for 4 hours today, 2 hours in the John Campea Show, 2 hours of this, probably on my 200th question of the day. And so maybe my brain is fizzling a little bit and I'm not understanding the question right. But anyway, that's my take on that, Mad. Thanks. All right, next up. John Lee writes in like a $20 super chat. Thank you, John, for supporting our channel on that level, dude. And John Lee writes, does anyone else think that the TVA might be located in the quantum realm? See, that came up yesterday, and I don't think so. I think, again, the quantum realm exists within reality, and the timekeepers are outside of that. So I don't think so. And again, we addressed this yesterday, but at any rate, might be within the quantum realm. Kang will be the next Ant-Man Quantumania movie, and we all know that space and time in the quantum realm work differently and sounds like the TVA space. So, yeah, you're not the first one to bring that up. We've had other people bring it up. And let me say up front that it's possible. It's possible. And it could be very well be what they do. Again, though, my understanding of the TVA and all that kind of stuff is that it completely exists outside of this reality. And the quantum realm is something that very much exists within it. You can time travel. You can do all this kind of stuff within the quantum realm, but it's all inside what is the sacred timeline. Whilst the TVA exists completely outside of it. It is to them like me having that Thanos that Thanos pop figure over there on my shelf. It's just sitting over there. I am outside of it and I can look at it, but I feel like that's what the TVA is to time and reality, that it sits outside of it. Again, could be completely wrong. Completely. Let's find out how we feel about it once we start getting some more information we should have gotten in episode 3. But let's find out how we feel about it once we start getting more information in from episodes 4, 5, and 6. We may have a totally different idea. All right, next up. You know what? And this one will be the final one of the day, guys. Jose, John skipped questions. I didn't skip any questions. Did you guys notice any questions that I skipped? Tim had later place. I have no idea what we're talking about. I did not notice any questions that I skipped. I will go back and review. And once I review, if I see something that I skipped, I will go back and try to address it in the next, But I've had struggles with the stream elements question feed here, jumping around. So it's possible maybe I missed one, but I will keep an eye out for that, and we'll see if we can correct it later. All right. This will be the last question today, because my voice is starting to go. Michael Mahoon writes, John, I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you do. Challenge. Name me 3 series that do/did weekly cliffhangers as well as the MCU series. Oh, I don't know. Dude, I've been talking and taking questions for 4 hours today. I don't know. I don't know. Don't care to think. If you guys, that's a better exercise for everybody else. Jump in if you have time to think about it, so you can come up with something and write something in there. I don't know off the top of my head. I just don't know, Michael. Sorry about that. All right, I'll do one more. Mukbang Reviews writes, you work super hard and we love it. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I still like to binge and haven't seen a second of Loki. I'm just here to witness the frenzy. I'll binge it once I'm finished. Thoughts? Well, I mean, my thoughts on Loki series have been very, very evident and clear. But I would say, man, get caught up. I mean, listen, I understand. I'm a binger too. I am a binger too. But binging a show like Loki or WandaVision or something, you lose out on so much as far as the fan experience goes. I love Mandalorian, WandaVision, this stuff where we get an episode and we get an entire week to geek out over and discuss and dissect and analyze. And then next week we get another episode, and then another one, and then another one. And it makes the fan experience 100 times better than binging it all at once and then not talking about it again after a week. You know what I mean? That's just me. So I would recommend Mukbang. I would recommend jumping on board, get caught up, and then follow along with the rest of us. That's just my take. And I say that as somebody who loves to binge. I love to binge, but there are just advantages of the fan experience that you cannot replicate with just binging something. So my recommendation is get on board. That's my recommendation. All right, guys, listen. There are obviously more to come from Juno Faulkner, Tim Platt, Ricardo, Michael Bradley, and others. Do not worry. I'm going to do a part 2 to this video, but we're going on 2.5 or 4.5 hours now that I've been talking. My voice is just about running out of steam here. I planned on going a little bit longer today, but I'm out of juice. I've just, the old voice has run out of battery power, folks. It is the temp pad. It's a little broken down right now. So I will do part 2 of this. I'll have it posted by tomorrow evening. So if you still had a question outstanding that you sent in here, or an observation or a theory that you wrote in, don't worry. I will get it covered. We're just going to have to do it in probably tomorrow. You'll see that go up online. So hang tight, guys. It will appear there. All right, guys. And that being said, that'll do it for this open spoiler discussion of Loki episode 3. Obviously not my favorite episode, but there were good parts about it, and some of you really liked it, which is awesome. All it's done for me is it amped up my excitement for next week's episode. I cannot wait to see where we go with this. Guys, thank you for being here, and thank you for sending in all the text and comments and all that kind of stuff. Number one, because he gave us great fun things to talk about, gave us some fantastic theories, some different points of view, which is excellent. But you also supported this channel by being here and doing that. So all of us who are involved with the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, guys, don't forget to join us again tomorrow for the John Campea Show. I'll be back on here. I should have Aaron Cummings with me tomorrow. I believe I'm going to have Aaron Cummings with me on here tomorrow. Anyway, we'll look forward to seeing you guys then. That'll do it for me for now. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.